Brains. Well, we're going to be talking about Ken Kratz tonight there, Ghosthead Frank. Hey there, everybody. How's it going? All right, that's just a little funny bid for Halloween starting out. So, that's what that was. Anyways, so we're here tonight to talk about really a couple things. For those of you who don't know, obviously I had a little chat with a producer who's going to be covering the Michael Funk Eagle Nation story. They're going to be making a docudrama telling the story of what happened there. So that's going to be awesome. So please, everybody, go check that interview out. I also interviewed the actor who's going to be playing Michael Funk. He's brilliant. His name's Dan Davies. Did an interview with him. I advise you go check those out. So that's, a big deal because, look, folks, it calls attention to another questionable, issue with law enforcement again and in the city of Neenah. And I think showing that these rural areas in Wisconsin seem to have these kind of problems, with their rural law enforcement and the way things kind of end up happening. So I think it showcases another instance where we're kind of like similar to what we're complaining about with Stephen and Brendan, except in this case, it was, Michael Funk was being held hostage at the business he owned, and when he escaped the building, as he was being fired at, he was then fired at by police and killed by police. So it's a sticky situation. There's a lot of things in it. I advise people to go check out some of my past videos about it. But they're going to be making a docudrama about it, and I would suggest that everybody maybe just keep their eye on the horizon for that, because it's going to be interesting. Right on, Jamie. How's it going? Hi, Mandy. Hi, Catnit. How's it going? Hi, Danielle Davis. Let's see who else we got here. Hey, Sharon. How's it going? Let's see. All right, so obviously it was having a little bit of fun there at the beginning, but let's get on to a serious note. Before I even get to Ken Kratz and talking about Ken Kratz, I am going to hold on just a second here. I think I got a serious lag issue or something. Huh. All right, well, anyway, we're going to talk about two things. And before I get to Ken Kratz, which, you guys know Mr. Capaldi has been covering very, very, ardently over on his channel. And I advise people to go check out what he's got going on right now, because he's just going through all of the complaints. And he's pointing out that, when you hear Ken Kratz talking about, there wasn't a violation and, all these technicalities where he's basically sidestepping the fact that what he did was wrong. And, and he admits that now, but I never feel like he admits it in a way like, I think he admits it as a token, kind of thing. He's just, I don't know. But anyway. How's it going, Hugh? What's up, buddy? Hey, Scott. How's it going, buddy? You got a live here on Halloween, man. Hey, Julie. What's up there, Pom Pom? Okay, so Pom Pom's got the refrigerator moved. We're ready to go. First thing I want to talk about tonight, before I get into the sweaty dumpling, Ken Kratz, is I want to talk about Teresa Halbach, folks. Okay? Now, I don't talk about Teresa a lot. I don't do a lot of videos about Teresa. And there's a reason why. It's not because of a lack of desire on my part to talk about Teresa more. It's not that. It's, well, you'll be able to look at it on this video. Probably within the next couple days, there will be somebody that will come into the comments section and suggest that I am using Teresa's name to make to better myself or to help my viewing or to whatever, that I'm using her, and that I'll get accused of that, and it will happen. So because there is such a negative flow, an attitude that comes out of the people who believe Stephen and Brendan are guilty, when you talk about Teresa, I just choose to do it every once in a while. And October 31st, the day that she went missing and clearly suffered a horrific death, whether it was at the hands of Stephen Avery is another matter, but clearly did. It's horrible, it's tragic, and she is a victim. She is a victim. And as much as the other side tries to suggest she's forgotten, she's not. And I'm here talking about her right now. And I will talk about her always on her birthday. And I will always talk about her on October 31st, the day that she went missing and, according to the prosecution, died. So, that's why I don't talk about Teresa more. Not because I don't think it's important to talk about or anything like that. So, we're going to talk about this. So, it's important to remember Teresa is the victim. And I don't begrudge guilters for pointing that out, but when you're pointing it out in a situation of people who have a very deep sympathy for Teresa and even the Halbach family, you know, because it's terrible what they've gone through, but we can also consider different possibilities of how it happened than what the state gave us. We can consider other avenues. We're able to do that. And we still consider it just as tragic. You know what I mean? So, that's why I'm going to do one, as it is my thing. She really is never forgotten by you. Yep, Sharon's going to be doing a video on her channel about Teresa coming up, so I'm looking forward to that. And I will let you guys know when she makes it and she uploads it. I'll give you guys a heads up so you can go over and check it out. But yeah, I mean, of course, we never forget the victims. I mean, I got my interest in watching true crime and detective, shows, like on the Investigation Discovery and the Datelines and the Nightlines and the, those shows that, even the Vanity Fair, when they'll go into like crime things, and watching those types of things, mainly because I had so much sympathy for the victims. That was always what drew me in. That was, I don't like the idea of people suffering and that sort of stuff. It's, as you may have been able to tell. And so I'm naturally drawn into this, true crime community out of a just deep sympathy for the victims to begin with. But I also have the capacity to look at BS when I see it and go, it's BS. And that's what we have here. I'm glad you're doing this. I thought about it yesterday. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a day for Teresa to be remembered. And this is a day for her to be talked about and remembered fondly. I mean, I'm telling you, she was very active in her community. She was, not just trying to get ahead and whatever as a photographer and everything, but like actually donated her time and helped out with girls volleyball, and everything. And she was, I'm sure a role model to a lot of those girls, because they saw this girl, with her camera and everything and driving around and whatever. And I'm sure a lot of those girls were thinking, hey, she's got it kind of going on, or she's got it figured out. So I'm sure they looked up to her. And she, she was a good person that, it's just sad and tragic what happened. I mean, it is. But having said that, I mean, even though I have sympathy, tremendous sympathy for Teresa and her family, I'm still logical, and I can't just swallow what the state threw out there for many reasons, really. And it's like a train wreck, you know. It's like all different cars in the train wreck, you know. But by that I mean, you first of all start off with the evidence is like sketchy. It's not convincing enough, and they know this. They know that the key being found on the 8th search by Colburn and Lank, and with only Stephen's DNA on it and not Teresa. They knew that was going to be a problem. Okay? 2/5 of the bones, only 2/5 of Teresa's cremains were found in Stephen Avery's burn pit. They're trying to claim it's all the cremains, and they're trying to say that was the primary burn site. But only 2/5, less than half of the cremains were there. You have all these bones scattered all over the quarries. You know, you just had this unconvincing evidence. So, November turns into December. December turns into January. Now, in February, they start harassing, Wiegert and Fassbender, start harassing Jody. Okay? They start harassing Jody. And they're harassing her. They're going over. They're questioning her. They're asking her very personal questions about her and Stephen, trying to get her to say things incriminating about Stephen, and all these sort of things. And eventually, she gets sick of it and tells them to go away. And she actually tells the jail not to allow them in anymore. She doesn't want to speak to them. They no longer have access to Jody, so they can't try to get anything more to try to help their case that way. And then the day after that, because they couldn't get in to see her, that's when all of a sudden the sights shifted to the Dassey boys. And they honed in on Brendan. And they did what we've all seen. They did what we've all seen they did to Brendan. Why? We know that Brendan was guessing. We know that Brendan was fed everything. We know he couldn't come up with the simple fact of how she was killed by a shot to the head. We know he couldn't come up with that. It had to be told to him. That's something that somebody that killed somebody would remember, or was there when somebody was being killed would remember. And it wouldn't have to be guessed at so many times. It's Brendan's eagerness to tell officers what they want to hear is exactly what makes it so explosive that they had to feed him that crucial fact, because he literally is trying to please them the whole time, guessing at what they want. And because he couldn't guess that right, you know, it's just, it proves just all the more that the confession is ridiculous. How's it going, Joseph? Long time no see. Hi, Marianne. That's very true, Sharon. What she points out is that she wants to say, you know, that thankfully Teresa's suffering is over, even though it's unfortunate that her life was ended so prematurely. But she is at peace, whereas Stephen and Brendan are basically suffering daily in their 10x10s. So, you have them getting the confession on Brendan. They coerce him, they feed it to him. And what do they do? What do they do immediately? Immediately. What do they do? They hold a press conference. They hold a press conference. And that's when they give out all these gory details that they fed to Brendan. As the acts of him and Steve, as the acts of Brendan Dassey and Stephen Avery. And they put this out. Remember, I suggest if you have any 14-year-olds in the room that you might want to ask them to leave, you know, or whatever, right? This press conference that totally colored the jury pool in that area. How could it not? You know what I mean? Happy Halloween, Christina. So, if you see that progression of events there, they had a bunch of evidence that they knew a decent lawyer was going to be able to shoot holes through. Okay? Even with the blood in the RAV4, because of that stupid squiggle, that Ken Kratz claims can be done from turning the key, but if you actually look at how far away it is from the ignition, it's much more likely that there would have been blood around the ignition than there would have been a weird curly Q V thing over about 3.5 or 4 inches away from the ignition. And Ken Kratz claims that could happen from turning the key. No, it can't. So you have all of this very suspect evidence. And then, like I said, they're getting desperate. They're badgering Jody. Jody turns them away. They set their sights on the Dassey boys, hone in on Brendan, feed him the confession, feed him the facts, hold a press conference to basically release all of those facts, as they call them, to the public. And why would you need to do that? If Stephen Avery is guilty, why do you need to ruin a 16-year-old kid's life? That's where, for me, it just shows how desperate they were. Because they did that to a 16-year-old kid. They were willing to ruin a 16-year-old kid's life to secure a conviction on Stephen Avery. Because there's nothing genuine about that confession. Nothing there that's genuine. Nothing. It's just, yeah. It's a matter of time before that gets set to rights, I'm sure. It's either it or a case like it is finally going to break through and get the Supreme Court, hopefully, to do something to allow some of these kids to break out of the state system sometimes, because I don't know what's going on with the states sometimes, where they will victimize kids like Brendan, kids that are mentally challenged, because they can't find the person that actually did it. They try to pin it on some kid who is perhaps not exactly right on par with his peers. It happens way too much. There's way too many wrongful convictions of youth. Way too many. Hi, Finn. Good to see you. That's a good point, Joseph. If one bumps knuckles turning the key in the ignition, the car would be redesigned before release to the public. Fair point. Listening to the jail tapes is interesting. To hear the family and Steve talk about the exact same, about the bogus evidence. Right, exactly. Then call him a sacrificial lamb 14 years later. There's too much that is not debatable. Yeah. So this is why I'm able to go, geez, you know what? I don't think Teresa got the justice she should have gotten here. I don't know that she did. In fact, I don't think she did. I started out thinking maybe she didn't, but now I'm pretty sure she didn't. I'm 3.5 years in, almost 4 years in now. January will be 4 years. So, and she did not. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. Pom pom. And that is a tragic thing. And yes, we supporters of Stephen and Brendan can recognize that, and we can find that to be a tragic element. And I probably will still get some guilters on this video who are going to, chastise me or scold me. But that's fine. At least somebody's out representing Teresa today in a public way. And and not forgetting her. Not forgetting Teresa. Never forgetting Teresa. Hashtag. It's hashtag that. Anyway. Hashtag never forgetting Teresa. So, being it's the 31st, being it's the day she went missing and supposedly the day she died, whether it was maybe November 1st or November 2nd possibly is another possibility. But for now, we know she went missing on October 31st. So this is a day that we remember Teresa. And like I said on my channel, another day is her birthday. And when Teresa's birthday comes around, we talk about her, and we make it about Teresa then as well. But as I said before, I don't talk about Teresa a whole bunch because obviously I don't want other people who are on the other side of the fence, claiming that I'm using her. So I keep it to a minimum. And but when I do talk about her, it's from the heart because it is very tragic what happened to Teresa. It is. Absolutely. So, all right. Moving on from Teresa. We'll talk about, because we're talking, it's interesting what we're going to be talking about with Ken Kratz today, because we're going to be hearing from the WDAA, which is the Wisconsin District Attorneys Association, and a letter they write to Kratz, and some of their own thoughts about his activities. Yep, this is the Wrecking Crew Rally t-shirt, folks. Let me show you. So, there it is. So, it's, we're going to talk about Ken. So, this letter from the Wisconsin District Attorneys Association is basically letting Ken know that they're just not at all amused with what he was doing. I agree, Carol. Is Falcon here? Oh, you were just tagging him? Are you able to tag somebody that's not here? All right. So, to preface this a little bit, I want to talk about, how you guys have seen Ken Kratz, like when he gets called out by Ryan Foley, okay, the famous press conference where he gets asked about the sexting and stuff, and he asks, is this a news event? Whatever, like he's like, and he starts getting all flustered, and I've put it on my channel and I posted the link recently. I'll try to go after the live and add it here, but it's basically a recorded conversation between this guy Ryan Foley, a reporter, and Ken Kratz, and Ken Kratz is basically arguing with Ryan Foley. It's an amazing thing to actually witness. I mean, to listen to. It's just crazy listening to Ken Kratz argue, because it's not about I was wrong. It's really never about that. It's all he keeps asking Ryan, like, did OLR find a violation? Did anybody this and that? Did anybody press charges or file charges or blah blah blah? He just keeps answering Ryan with answers like that, instead of answering the direct questions that Ryan was asking him about these particularly this time one girl that he had sexted, because Ryan had gotten the information about it and he had actually talked to her. So, but Ken Kratz was just basically all smug and just so happy to stand on technicality, saying, did anybody find a violation? And the funny thing is that Ryan didn't know whether or not OLR found a violation yet. He hadn't been able to, because OLR obviously is protective of information. They don't just hand it out. So Ken Kratz is the one that tells Ryan Foley that OLR found no violation, right? But then he tries to walk it back, like, I didn't say that. It's just bizarre. Ken Kratz, dude, the way he is, he doesn't care about the truth. Okay? He cares about what he can make people believe. It's a slight difference. Okay? The truth is the truth. But being motivated to get people to believe what you want them to believe, that's not necessarily the truth. So that's what is clear with Ken Kratz. And then Julie goes and links convoluted Brian. Alright, fair enough, fine. So, I'm going to read this letter. So, it's from the WDAA, and it's to District Attorney Ken Kratz. So he's still District Attorney in Calumet County at the time. It's on September 17th of 2010, which is basically 1 year before they give the bones back. I think that was in September 19th of 2011, so that's interesting. But anyway, this letter is dated September 17th of 2010. Please hold. So it's to District Attorney Ken Kratz, Calumet County Courthouse, blah 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 blah. District Attorney Kratz. The Wisconsin District Attorneys Association is a voluntary organization established to advocate on behalf of prosecutors throughout Wisconsin. While we have no supervisory authority, we have the benefit of the collective and institutional knowledge of our membership. Though we have no ability to counsel or sanction others, those who look to us for guidance on criminal justice matters should know that we are a responsible entity which has the objectivity and wherewithal to engage in issues as serious as those as you have been involved in. Whoa! They're basically throwing the gauntlet down right there. You get it, right? They're basically like, we're supposed to be able to have the wherewithal to, avoid things like this. Your actions have brought it right to our doorstep, basically, right? And so, it's amazing. How's it going, Razor? Hello, Pete. So, it goes on, your behavior involving a crime victim was repugnant and cannot be countenanced. Crime victims have both statutory and constitutional protection, which are protections which are designed to protect them from systemic or bureaucratic abuses that may unintentionally flow from the criminal justice system. Our statutes provide for sanctions to be imposed upon any prosecutor or judge who does not absolutely guard victims' rights. Your behavior was neither unintentional nor innocent. As a co-founder of our current victims' rights system, and as a frequent lecturer on these topics, no prosecutor could be expected to know these issues better. So basically, nobody better than you would know exactly what is wrong with what he was doing. Basically, they're saying you better than any would know, and yet you did it. That's what they're saying. I mean, so it goes on. When a crime victim exercises her statutory right to consult with the prosecutor, you use that access to promote your own self-interest. That alone was wrong. However, the goals you were pursuing were improper, disturbing, and repugnant. You apparently took advantage of victims' contact information data collected to aid and assist victims, to pursue an unwanted sexual liaison. In so doing, you forced a crime victim to consider whether her unwillingness to consummate such a liaison might translate into inaction in her criminal case. Right? They're basically going, you used the information that we collect. You used that information that we collect to help these victims, and you used it for your own personal self-gain, and put that victim in the position of having to consider whether her refusal of your advances would end up in you dropping the case. That's pretty slimy, dude. That is pretty freaking slimy. Your behavior has cast aspersions on our entire profession. It has generated the question of whether our crime victims, whose interests we serve, may now hesitate when considering whether to share their personal information with us or to participate in our prosecutions. It is impossible to fathom how any crime victim in your county could ever do so with your office in the future. Dude. They're basically saying, we feel sorry for crime victims in Calumet County because they're certainly not going to want to bring their problem to you. That's... Whoa. Man. That's strongly worded, folks. Stacy Seabrooks, I'm the prize. That's a good one. Thanks, Van. KK is a predator, weaseled his way into the position of power in order to exploit and abuse that power. It seems so, very much. Kratz ethical violations should call into question his prosecutions. Why no mentions of that by Calumet County? Well, it's the way that I can say already. The way the courts work is that I doubt there would ever be a retroactive type of thing. Everything is case specific, and but I mean, maybe could be if multiple campaigns were raised, or if charges were brought, or anything. So. So, that's the first thing. Then, this is basically to do with the pretrial press conference, right? Media, to this very day, serves as the biggest form of pretrial publicity that encourages people to view a defendant as guilty prior to their day in court. Not only do we have the political circus of Senator Alan Lass's SJR 5 bill in play with bringing the death penalty back to Wisconsin for those convicted of intentional homicide supported by DNA evidence, but we have the press conference started early and being held by Calumet. So that's another interesting little wrinkle in the Avery case, right? The fact that they actually pushed the trial back. They actually delayed the trial because of that little thing they were talking about there with Senator Alan Lass and this bill to bring back the death penalty in Wisconsin for people convicted of homicide with DNA evidence. I mean, pretty scary, but they went ahead and delayed Avery's trial to be after the vote on that. I mean, it just seems that the state had a that it just seems they were doing things to support a shite show, I guess I'm going to say, because that's what it is. And yet they continue to sign off on it. So, yeah, I can't expect the state to do the right thing. I can't expect Manitowoc or Calumet to do the right thing. So, here we go. Round and round and round we go. But that's, to me, an interesting thing. I mean, the fact that they pushed the trial, they didn't move the trial up. They pushed it back so that it would be after. I mean, turns out that Wisconsinites decided they still didn't want the death penalty. But, it's just interesting that maybe some people thought it would pass, and pushing Avery's trial to be after that vote. Interesting. 36 million reasons, yes, but you guys, I've said this before. I really have an opinion that more than the 36 million, what was trying to be avoided was the black eye. It was getting very embarrassing. It was getting extremely embarrassing. And Vogel and Peterson were going to be the next ones up. Right when this all happened. Those two were going to be the next ones on the carpet, being questioned and all that sort of stuff, right? Just like we've seen all the other officers, right? When you watch the documentaries. So, everybody go over and check out 80 More Things, by the way. Fen just uploaded a new episode 4 with Mr. Jinx. I love Jinxie. Jinxie's one of my favorite people. So go over and give that a listen. And go subscribe to the 80 More Things podcast, because she's gonna keep bringing out good content with folks that are really into the case, people that know a great deal about it. It's really good. Podcast. Go check it out. It's amazing. Oh. Happy Halloween. So, it's just amazing. I don't talk about Ken Kratz because I think talking about Ken Kratz is because I think it will help Stephen's case, or that it in any way would matter in terms of the legal arena. The reason why I do talk about Ken Kratz on occasion is because I feel it's necessary to get out there and point out why he can't be trusted. So when you hear him spouting off on Twitter and everything else and making his little YouTube videos, which they were just talking about his channel there, when they're it's when he's going off and claiming, and tweeting at Governor Evers, about talking about Brendan, and he's like, he's guilty, right? And all that sort of stuff. I mean, I believe all that stuff needs to be countered. It's, in my opinion, it needs to be, because Ken Kratz is not reliable or trustworthy, and I can't, and his, well, if the Stephen Avery prosecution is his idea of fact, well, that tells you a lot right there. He is not, I mean, he talked about sweat DNA. He recently, when that was thrown in his face, he tried to claim he never said it. And then people went and started grabbing clips and throwing them in his face on Twitter. And, I mean, the guy is just, he's something else. He's something else. Ken's head on. I do not need an orange spray tan. Nope. In the Wisconsin DOJ, his credibility is shot, as well as in the public eye. Wisconsin DOJ is damage control right now. Yeah, and I'm sure they hate the fact that he's still talking, and he keeps saying things and sharing things, and he keeps riling everything up. I'm sure they hate this. I'm sure they wish he would shut the hell up. Oh, for Frankenstein's monster? Yeah, well, Frankie's heed. Yeah, maybe next time. Let's see. Did I read somewhere that Kratz says Brendan should be free? Yeah, he kind of goes back and forth, doesn't he? He's arguing that Brendan served enough time, in his opinion, now that he should be let go, but that he did it. But when all this clemency stuff and a possible pardon started getting talked about, he was all about, oh, Brendan's guilty, oh, he's all guilty. It's like, he can't walk a line because he's constantly shifting position to defend. It's just, yeah. Anyway. Do folk in the USA feel constrained about calling KK for what he is? No, Hugh, the reason why I don't encourage people to just be irate and call King Kratz names on Twitter and stuff and just be generally shallow, I don't want people to do that, because that's the kind of stuff that Andy Colburn is trying to turn into a lawsuit. You know what I mean? So I don't really want people giving King Kratz that ammo. Come at him with the facts. Show him what he said is incorrect. I love it all day long. I just don't like the meaningless stuff, the name calling, the that's all just, that's kid stuff. You know what I mean? And ultimately, I think it makes supporters look bad. Let's see. How long ago was that file? I'm going to say another 10 days to 2 weeks, I think. Yeah. You have the right to say things, but you can still violate the law. Plus, Kratz is the prize. Yeah, he's the prize. I wonder, can we get that playing? Where's my speaker? Where my speaker is. Oh, there it is. Let's see if we can get the prize here. Doo-doo-doo.
Power on. Connection successful.
All right, here we go.
Ooh, I'm the prize. Ooh, I'm the prize. I'm the prize. Come and feast your eyes. I know you won't fantasize about me, sweaty. Ooh, how I tantalize, 'cause I'm the prize. Ooh, I'm the prize. I'm an upstanding member of community. I've got prosecutorial immunity. I can do whatever I want. Underline that in your boldest font. I got the backing of the state, they're the motto win. Even if I'm popping back it in, and it don't matter how shoddy the signs. I'm too busy now sexing my clients cause I'm the prize. Ooh, I'm the prize. I can put you away before your trial begins. I tell the media all your sins, it don't matter if what I say is true. They believe me and so do you. I can do anything, I'm above the law. I can do things that'll drop your jaw. I can hide things I'm supposed to disclose. It don't matter if everybody knows cause I'm the prize. Ooh, I'm the prize. Did I happen to mention immunity? I can control everything that the defense sees. I can cheat, I can lie, I can fabricate, and I can hide. I'm the prize. Ooh, I'm the prize. The sweaty sweat, I'm the prize.
Yes, I love it. I'll save that one for the end. So, Eminem Seabrook. Actually, Jamie, if you were with us in Australia, there was he kept doing I think it was Truth Train. And he kept doing it as a rap. He kept singing it. Like we were driving around to places. He just would like start rapping like Truth Train or one of the other ones, right? And he would just start rapping it like, and then he said, I had this idea about maybe working with some of the young kids on the island, and like he had this idea, but it never ended up coming about. But yeah, I knew he had that interest, and so it is funny to kind of see it come out in that song. I think that song's hilarious, and I think it's just the way he goes. Yeah, he just keeps hammering on those points, you know, where King Kratz feels he's above the law. He just nothing can touch him, you know, and yeah. It's the one she should be playing for Halloween. Yeah, that's a copyright. Oh, excuse me. But if you guys want a cool Monster Mash to listen to, hold on, let me find it. It's a Monster Mash parody, and it's freaking hilarious. What the hell? All right. He's an American citizen. This doesn't have any authority anymore. He can't have a legal say anymore. But yeah, he showed up at Brendan's oral arguments at the 7th Circuit, right? Got in front of the cameras there, plugged his book. He didn't have a press conference to go to this time, so he just started uploading videos to YouTube. To TikTok, Manitowoc, yeah. I like TikTok. I've had him on. I had him on for Mammothon, and I'm looking to get him on again. So hopefully I will soon. Everybody go over and check out 80 More Things podcast. Remember that. So, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. now. We'll listen to one more Stacy song here on the way out. And, hope everybody's having a good Halloween, a happy Halloween. It was great to have you all here. Thanks for showing up. And let's go ahead and listen to one more Stacy song before we go.
How would you feel if you were charged with a capital offense? The state's case against you lacked all common sense. How would you feel in a court of law full of arrogant pretense? And how would you feel that you could not be saved by truth, the absolute defense? All truth should be the absolute defense. How would you feel left all alone, no attorney or parents?
Good night, everybody.
Left to the world to tear at your bones, although they lack any evidence. Comes at a cost, at freedom and justice's expense, to lock up two men away for life, although they're innocent.
Yeah, it kind of does,
Would
Julie.
you feel that you could not be saved by truth, the absolute defense? All truth should be the absolute defense.
I agree, Julie. That does have a bit of that feeling of, crow fly straight. Yeah, it has. I get what you mean. All right, folks, that's about it for this one. Good night, everybody. Thank you for being here. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe or leave your sweat DNA on the subscribe button, however you want to look at it. But please do so, and we'll see you.